Hello, middle-aged musician here. Today I was going to talk about my Orange OR15 head. It's a little switchable 15 or 7 watt tube head powered by a pair of EL84 tubes in the kind of classic orange styling with the old head shell style and the Pix style graphics. It varies from those older oranges in a number of ways. It has a buffered effects loop, tube buffered effects loop. It has a 3-band EQ, and it's powered by a pair of EL84s. It's switchable between 7 and 15 watts. It's a pretty straightforward amp. Nothing too complicated. Sounds pretty good. I've had mine for several years. I used it. Most of the recordings that I had done for Rob the Bear were either running through that orange in the Hiwatt T20 that I reviewed previously in stereo, or an old Laney IRT rack mount amp that I had. Those were usually the amps that I would use. They're nice for doing recordings. They're not as big and loud as the other ones. It takes pedals pretty well. Run the time-based stuff through the effects loop, usually with a noise gate, and then it takes stack distortion pretty well. I usually run through like a tube screamer and a big muff, or like a big muff style, and like one of the Bogner ecstasy pedals. So it does pretty well with that. Anyway, I'm going to demonstrate it with Les Paul, Tele, and probably 7-string with a little higher pickups. Not sure if I'm going to use any pedals with it at this point. You'll see. I'm going to walk through the specs a little bit, look at the guts, and all the kind of normal review stuff. So I hope you enjoy this, and I'll chat with you later. Yep, stacking the Notaklon into the Hizumitas. Neck pickup, treble and mid at 2 o'clock, bass is maxed, 15 watt mode. Let's look at the externals of this amp. It's not a particularly large amp, as you can tell. It's got the classic, handles, head case style, and the Pix graphics you expect from an orange amp. It has the single input. It has a gain and a volume control, which are these guys, respectively, and the 3-band EQ on the front. Standard for an orange piping, but unlike a lot of the oranges, well, maybe it's just a cabinet, so you have the wood sleds. I think it's just a cabinet, so you have the wood sleds. Metal corners, handle, let's look at the back. So on the back, of course, the IEC, we've got a send and return on our effects loop, and then we have different cabinet options: 16 ohm, 2 8 ohm, single 8 ohm, that you can run this. So pretty straightforward. So that's it for the externals. Okay, I've removed the head from the shell. An interesting feature is that there aren't separate bolts to hold the chassis in. The bolts go through the feet of the amp up into the chassis. So they've kind of repurposed the screws to hold the little rubber feet in to also be what holds the chassis in. Pretty clean layout here. We've got our power transformer, our output transformer, pair of EL84 output tubes. Says it's got a 2 buffered effects loop, so I'm guessing that's what this guy is here. Let's see what we have. Try and get this being persnickety. There we go. Does that say? I think that says ECC 83. So standard 12AX style tube. Make sure I've got it indexed right. So that means we probably have these other 3 tubes are probably preamp tubes and a phase inverter. I've heard discussions on this. This is a class AB amp push-pull circuit. So that's the top. Let's look at the guts a little bit here. I guess give you one more shot of the top so you can kind of see the layout of everything. Okay, so let's look at the guts. And so what do we have here? Okay, so we have PC mounted pots, which I don't like as well. You take a hit or something and it can wind up being an issue with these connections. It's a little busier board, but it's got a lot going on. It's a little bit busier looking than the Hiwatt was for something that's fairly similar. Things are marked pretty well though. Here we see this is marked gain, bass, middle, treble, volume. So everything's marked well. Interestingly, you can see where they share a lot of the same board. Here it says Jim Root Terror /OR15, and then a date code of 1/19/2012. I doubt this is when this was manufactured. This is probably when that design was put together. Orange Musical Instruments. Kind of like the Hiwatt, we do have PC mounted tubes. Not a fan of that, but in this price range, new these are about $750 US. Used you can pick them up about half of that. They mark everything here. This says 12AX7. Guess I didn't need to pull that tube after all. 12AX7 V1, V2, V3, soldered to the board. They also have these little jumper connections. The layout's pretty neat. Not keen. You can see where these wires here are sitting on top of this catalytic, and it's either gotten, it looks like a little bit of heat destruction to the shielding. Could also be just the pressure of being clamped down, but it does look like maybe a little bit of heat. Either way, these things are sandwiched. Sorry about that. Sandwiched between this capacitor and the bottom of the head shell. So that's not the best. We've got our big resistors here. All these electrolytics. More resistors. Got our ground noted there. Maybe they're using a star style grounding. There's a little the hardware they have for the switches and that, these little Cliff style jacks, they all look fine. It is kind of a busier board though. Does look like you can work on it relatively easily. You would have to take all this hardware off and probably unplug from this IEC jack to actually do anything. And what do they got going on over here? Can't tell if that's just some sort of bus over here, but anyway, there's the guts, and like I said, it doesn't look too bad. So. Adjusting the treble, adjust the mids, and the bass. I'll put the bass around 3. Mids around 3, treble around 2. I've got gain at about 2. I usually like it about 1 or 2. Starting out with everything flat. Treble first. Bass. Gains at noon. Move it up. It's about 2 o'clock. Cranked. up just so you can hear. Everything else is flat. We get everything else 5 o'clock or noon, I'm sorry. So I'm going to move the volume up to halfway. I'll put it at noon, 15 watts. I'll put it all the way up. Put on a half power, 7 watts. It really doesn't make that much of a difference. Halfway. Full power. 15 watt. 7 watt. I'm going to leave it just around 1 o'clock. I'm going to pull the gain down. I'll put the output all the way up with the gain down. Start moving the gain up. Noon there. That's about 2 o'clock. Dime. Take the treble out. So still with the 7-string, I've got the gain at noon. I have a JHS Notaklon. So that's just straight into the amp. I've got the Notaklon gain cranked. So here I have the Hizumitas, same settings as before. I've got gain at noon. It's at 15 watt mode. Just the amp. With the Hizumitas. Without. Turn the gain up.